Welcome back to Sacred Arts, where we discuss a variety of different paths. I am your host, Jazzy Jackson, and today we have a spicy topic on erotic alchemy with sex coach and dear friend of mine, Beth Adrienne. Beth Adrienne is a sex and relationship coach. She has turned her own sexless marriage into a deeply connected relationship and loves to help other couples do the same. She was a massage therapist for 35 years and has knowledge and understanding of the body and its nervous system. She is a certified blueprint coach, accelerated evolution coach, and holds 2 certificates from the School of Orpheus Black, renowned kink coach. She is currently studying the orgasmic art with sex coach Genevieve Rudolph and at the Shamanic Academy. When she is not walking the coaching path, you can find her as a pole artist, dancing in general, and riding her bike. Welcome, Beth.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. I mean, in a lot of our discussions on a week-to-week basis, we find so many similarities in the things that you're studying as a sex coach. And so I really wanted to have you on because I know a lot of my listeners and a lot of personal friends, really, when we talk about sex in general, we can really use some of your wisdom. So thank you.
Yay. I'm so
Can you
happy.
share a little bit about your background and journey that led you to become a sex coach?
Yeah, it's a really personal story, just so you know, and it's vulnerable for me. Really, the story begins that my partner and I were not having sex, and that was really devastating and sad. And I had a real deep heart connection with him, and I think it happens to a lot of couples. The beginning energy carries your relationship, and then things start to disconnect over time. And it's heartbreaking when that happens. Those are the times that lead to divorce, they lead to infidelities, all of those kinds of things. And so, but for me, that about that time was when I saw Jaya speak, who's my teacher and the creator of the 5 erotic blueprints. And I was so interested because she was a sex coach and she had been struggling with her own marriage and having a lot of shame because she wasn't having sex with her husband, and she was a sex coach. And then she turned that around. And that story was so inspiring to me that I wanted to take her course. And just to be honest, we took the course together. My husband and I took it. It didn't work. And my husband was like, I don't love it. I don't like it. I don't like this. I don't like any of this. And so then I had posted something on Facebook, and this private coach who was one of her coaches emailed me, and we decided to work with someone privately. And he still wasn't ready. He was still like, no, this is not like a no for me. And so I worked with her by myself. And there was this moment in time where I was sitting in a cafe at lunch with one of my really good friends. And I said, I am having an amazing sex life with myself, and I have a heart connection with my husband, and I think that's it. I'm good. I'm good. I feel good. And in that time, I came home, and my husband had emailed my coach and said he wanted to work with her and was ready. So it was like magic. Um, and what was really magical about all of that is just this idea that you can start this journey by yourself. It doesn't have to be about the other person. And when you do start this journey all by yourself, a rising tide lifts all boats, which is something that my teacher always says. So there you go.
Incredible. Thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing that story, because I think a lot of us can identify with that in wanting and knowing that we want something more and something deeper. And if our partner isn't ready, there really isn't anything that we can do about that. But it sounds like you guys tried. And I think that that's so important in your story. Like you did do something and you did try and it didn't work. And that was okay. You found a way to make it okay for you personally. And by changing that energy and shifting that within you, something happened with your partner in the sense that he was then ready and sought it out himself. That's incredible. I love hearing your stories. You have so many stories about how you always align to your own energy and you go within and you make things good for yourself. And then something magical happens with your partner, which I love. And it's so inspiring. I also see you as a very grounded person, someone who has uh, a very holistic approach to things, and you tend to empower people. I mean, you empower me through your own perspectives. Can you talk a little bit about what does it mean to approach sexuality from that place of holistic and empowered?
Yes. What's happening in our culture is sex is very transactional. So oftentimes people are approaching sexuality in the way of wanting someone else to meet their needs. And especially too, if I have a couple, oftentimes they're pointing at the other person, like, they're not meeting my needs. This person's not meeting my needs. And so what we need to do is realize that you, and I want to change the word masturbation to self pleasure because it encompasses more. Okay.
Hmm.
And so a self pleasure practice is also feeding yourself. And when two people create an ecosystem where they both feed themselves and become a full cup, then when you're having sex, it's not transactional anymore. You're coming to that other person with a curiosity, with exploration, with also like, oh, let's dare to fuck it up. Maybe it's not going to work out, something, this doesn't really quite connect, but but we had fun or we played with it, and there's not that devastation of like, that transactional, like, and kind of like coming to that person as a beggar. I think it's happened a lot too over time with, especially with traditional men and women's roles of where like a woman will feel almost like this penetration is taking something from her. And that's very, very like traditional, like the way that looks. But, and that's not our world in this moment in time. But if you look at it, that, or sometimes even a guy will feel that way, but this idea of something being taken from you and you want it to not have that flavor anymore. So shifting that flavor is really what I'm after.
Mm. I can totally identify with that because as you were talking, I was thinking about how times have changed and maybe not necessarily for the best in a lot of ways. Because I mean, the minute you said sex is very transactional, the thing that came up was Tinder, right? Like now we have it so accessible and it really is a transactional thing in a lot of cases. And there really isn't anyone that's teaching us about this. Like, yeah, you have like your sex ed in high school, which doesn't do much. No one's really teaching us about this other side of self pleasure and owning your own pleasure and not having this expectation of when I'm going to have sex with a partner, whether it's transactional or not, like I expect to feel these things and oh, I didn't feel those things. So it's their fault type of thing, right? We have to own that for ourselves. And that's really empowering in itself.
Yeah, owning your own orgasm is huge. Like that's a big deal. And it kind of what brought up too for me when you're talking is I had a pole sister who was a lot younger than me, and I asked her, well, what's sex like out there right now? And she said, everyone keeps trying to choke me. And I was like, well, and she said, that's because of porn, and people are seeing that all the time. And she goes, and I'm not, they're not asking me about it. We're not, having a consent-based conversation. And I think consent can be really empowering if it's done in a way that is not like, do you say yes to this right now? I mean, like a longer conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, but that's why this stuff that we're teaching right now is sex ed, honestly. So
Yeah.
that's yeah.
I feel like it goes a little bit deeper than your traditional, like,
Mm.
this is where the parts go and STDs, like it's all about empowerment and owning it, which is so beautiful.
For sure.
So I want to get into the nitty gritty of your own practice. So how do you help individuals or couples, for that matter, overcome common challenges or insecurities related to their sexual experiences?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I want to emphasize is just this idea of compassion. So when anytime something is not working and you're having some upset or feelings about it, it's good to really go into compassion for yourself. So start there. The next thing that I love the framework of the 5 erotic blueprints that Jaya created. And really, everybody has a blueprint that they're drawn to. And it's kind of their sex language or their erotic language. And just so you know, they're very fluid and they can expand and contract, and you can grow into someone else's sex language and they can grow into yours. So it's not a set thing. And in fact, there's a quiz that you can go and take if you go to my link tree, and it'll tell you what your primary one is right now. And then that's kind of like I hate to call them love languages because I think it's a lot deeper than love languages. It goes a lot deeper than that. But and also this idea that there is an erotic language that your body is speaking. So those are fun. And the 5 are energetic, which is really the spiritual community. Is primarily the energetics. I see them all the time, and I love them. And there's the sensuals, which are the people that are drawn to the 5 senses, and they love beauty and they love food. And there's the sexuals, which are people that are just like what we see in traditional movies, like the insert slot A into slot B kind of thing. The genitals, all of that, the very like nitty gritty of that. And then there's the kink, which are the people that are drawn to the taboo or being naughty or role playing, and it really encompasses so much. But so kinks are really fun too. Anyway.
That's such a simple tool, but very effective. When you first introduced it to me just a few weeks ago, I learned so much about myself. And just in the short month that I've had this tool and have learned about myself, it has transformed my sex life. And not even talking about it with my husband, because I haven't talked to him about it or I haven't sent him my results yet.
Mhm.
Um, but there's something within me that has changed how he presents himself to me and how our sex life has transformed. I don't even know how to explain it, but it is really a powerful tool, and it's so simple, and it's kind of like, one of those you think about it as one of those Cosmo quizzes, but it really goes in depth. And if you actually, there's a free version and then there's a paid version, and if you do the paid version, I think it's only like $17 or something like that. It really goes a little bit deeper, and it shows you the different percentages that you're at on each one. So really powerful tool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Oh, and I forgot to say the 5th one, which is shapeshifter, which is person who loves it all. Lots of people are shapeshifters and we don't want to forget about them.
I love that. So people can be very inhibited with their sexuality. I know I'm one of those people. I'm very reserved. And so I want to know a little bit about what are your recommendations or advice around, for people to come out of their shell a little bit and to start to tap into their own sexuality.
Well, number one, pleasure is so shame is baked into pleasure in our society. It's everywhere. And we don't even know how subtle it is. Like, for example, the nerve that creates an orgasm in a woman is called the pudential nerve. That translates to the nerve of shame.
Mhm.
So, just so that you know, that even like the things that we are calling our body parts were named by people that felt that shame, that sexuality had shame baked into it. There was a time where a woman, if she didn't have a traditional vaginal orgasm, she could be that could be a cause for divorce from her husband. So, faking orgasms, we don't even know where sometimes that comes from, but it comes from like a survival based place. There's so many different ways that pleasure is revolutionary. uh, One of the things that happens is that I noticed when I started my pleasure journey, maybe one of the only things that was really acceptable in terms of like not being shame based was eating. And even that was not okay because what if you eat sugar and that's going to make you fat? So even there's some shame baked into that pleasure. Um, so just starting to realize and sort of wake up to your own inner, uh, like have your own inner revolution, really. Freedom really is like the revolution will not be televised. Well, it will not be televised because it's within, you know? And so that's part of it is waking up to what is around us, what has been taught to us, what's being shown to us. I mean, what's acceptable? Working all the time, overworking, becoming successful, creating a life where you have a lot of money, and then ultimately those things happen and then you're like, wow, I still feel kind of disconnected from everything. So so that's the first thing to understand. So, and just giving yourself a ton of compassion over that, and like and being slow, like only going as fast as the slowest part of you. You don't need to go any faster than that. You're allowed to not override your body. You don't owe anybody anything. Like no one owes anybody anything. You do not own your that somebody an orgasm. You don't owe them your body. Your body is your body. And really it's empowering to be like, I know what I love. I know what my body needs. I know what my somatic yes and no is. So all of those kinds of things.
All of those things are so empowering. And to me, the biggest aha moment I had in that is like the nerve that is connected to shame. It makes so much sense just in the way that society sees sex, but also in the way that I have felt about it, even like self pleasure in the past, how I have felt about it. There was so much shame attached to that. So thank you for sharing that wisdom with us.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit around the potential transformative power of sexual energy and its impact on personal growth and even like spiritual development?
Well, first of all, the life current of this planet is the sexual current. Okay. And I want you to look around at every single person in the world was created because of sex. And really, if you look at every kind of creation, it has a sexual quality in it, baked into it. We
Mm.
are creating from that current. And so that's what makes us, that's how we make things in the world. So understanding that. And I also want to normalize this idea of Kundalini. Like people often think, oh, you have to be enlightened to have Kundalini rise in your body. Kundalini is that sexual current that's flowing through you. And sexuality and pleasure and all of those things are a technology. And that technology is allows you to to create channels through your body. So it unsticks things. Like, for example, when I started my self pleasure practice, before that, I used to like grit my teeth at night. I used to have tension in my shoulders. I used to worry when I had a back pain or a pain in my body. And now I understand my pleasure practice so deeply that I don't have I don't grit my teeth anymore. I don't have the kind of tension that I had in my shoulders. If back pain arises, I'm like, oh, I have a technology to work with that. And I know it's sort of weird to call it a technology, but I do think understanding that it was taken away from us, and there's a reason. Because when you're a beggar, you're so much more interested in buying things out in the world, in consuming. And so once you get back to feeding your body what it actually is meant for, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's a, the French call orgasm le petit mort, which means little death. And the reason they call it that is because when you have an orgasm, there on the other side of that orgasm is beingness, and you are connecting with God. You will connect with the world and the universe, especially if you really, really relax into it and just stay with it. And you've also created an ecosystem where your body is feeling safe and comfortable and having that kind of relaxed arousal that it wants and needs to feel safe. And that comes with every single thing. And I'm talking about kink too, because kink can be done very wrong. People might love the taboo, but you might be overriding something that you didn't know. You're overriding your body. But if you create a really safe container to have that taboo experience, then you're creating an ecosystem where you feel safe.
Right.
So,
Right. It made me think a little bit about like, as that Kundalini is rising, as you're connecting to that God source within you, it feels like the perfect time to manifest.
absolutely, it does, and that can be a part of it. Oftentimes, the very ending after beingness is what we call expression, and all of this comes from the orgasmic arc, which is created or was channeled to my teacher Genevieve. But and on the other side of expression is really the moment where you turn to your partner and you say, "I love you," or it's the moment where you're like, wow, I want to create this in the world.
Mhm.
So all those things can happen with sex.
Mm, that sounds yummy. I sometimes sex can be used as a way to mask emotions, to push down things that we don't want to look at because we're chasing after that pleasure, right? So, do you have any effective strategies for maintaining a healthy balance between that sexual exploration and maintaining emotional well being within intimate relationships?
Those two things cannot be separated. We have to create ground first. We have to create a place of safety for ourselves and our bodies. And from that comes authentic pleasure. You can't force pleasure. I mean, you can, we do it all the time. We're always forcing arousal, but we don't need to force arousal. What's really more exciting is this sort of idea of authentic pleasure. And that authentic pleasure will happen when you're creating a world where you feel grounded, safe in your body. You find a place that is like that comfy place. We always start there. We always want to start everything there. The reason why oftentimes you go on a date and you end up in bed with that person is because what do you do? What's the first thing you do on a date? You share with each other. And what happens when you share with somebody? You start to feel safer because you've created a world where you're sharing something super intimate about yourself. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, I kind of have some arousal here going on because me and this other person have like shared this deep thing. Because usually you do share something, you know? And then that's how that starts to like build and build and build. Um, but yeah, I think we have to create safe spaces for ourselves. That's the primary thing that has to happen in our culture around sex. We cannot we can, everybody's going to, no matter what I say, but it would be great if people started to really have that safety feeling, because one of the things that happens is we're overriding ourselves all the time, and then later we feel terrible because we overrode our actual thing that we needed in our bodies, so valuing that safety is really valuing comfort, valuing groundedness, valuing all of that, goes a long way to create authentic arousal.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like all of this knowledge that you're bringing into this space right now is going to really bring some aha moments. And I'm really interested to hear a little bit about your success stories or even personal testimonials that demonstrate that positive impact when you're coaching others or, either individuals or couples on their sexual journey.
I mean, I think the thing that happens for people is the most important thing that happens for somebody is that they begin to understand that they can hold themselves and they can hold big emotions. So the other thing is deconstructing this idea that orgasm is in the genitals. So for example, you can have orgasm in my world is just a concentration of energy. So that could be negative, what we call negative, or it could be positive. So when you find yourself in your pleasure practice, when you find or having sex with somebody, sometimes there's a moment where you feel like crying. That is also an orgasm. Or sometimes there's just a concentration of pleasure in one place. So meeting that place and just holding that and not trying to fix it or change it is really what is going to is what comes in and creates an orgasm, creates that way of moving some of that energy, out. So what people tell me is that they can hold themselves and they can hold their big emotions, and that they have a way to work with the fight, fight, flight, um, freeze, fawn, that whole kind of system. They have a way to work with that, because they've created a world where they're holding themselves.
Mm.
So and I think that that's what happened for me. I think that was the most empowering thing, is knowing that there's nothing scary about having a big emotion. It's a sensation in my body, and I can go in and I can create orgasm from that sensation, wherever it is. If it's in my heart, if it's in my belly, and sometimes it is in your genitals, and oftentimes it's in your genitals. And so all of that happens. And just knowing that you have permission to explore it, dare to fuck it up, see what happens. You have permission to do all of it. So there's all that.
One thing that comes to mind is, there is this culture of shame around sexuality and sex. And so if we're trying to explore within our bodies and like feel into where these pleasure centers are at, what would you recommend for somebody that has some deep shame? Where can they start? How can they release some of that shame so that they can start to self-explore?
There's a lot of different things that are happening when their shame is happening. So, first of all, noticing where that sensation lives in your body can be really powerful. What is this sensation? How old is that sensation? Does it have a color? Does it have a weight to it? Does it have a goal for you? Is it trying to protect you? Is it trying to ask you to give yourself more love? What is that shame there for? Um, and you know, so I think that that's the first step in just sort of looking at your shame, as like looking at it like, where does it live in my body and what does it want for me? Sometimes that's a little easier when you have somebody reflecting that back for you, like a coach or a mentor or a therapist. And so those kinds of people are helpful to reflect that back. And I mean, ultimately, it is about permission. It is about allowing yourself to. What I really I love the word, and this comes from Mama Gina, is this idea of pleasure research.
I love Mama Gina.
No, I mean, pleasure research is huge because it's like, well, what do I love? Is it, and, what else brings me pleasure in this world? I mean, I do think that we ultimately have to find a time or a place to put our own two hands on our bodies. But there is also the pleasure of nature. Um, there's the pleasure, of coffee. There's the pleasure of beauty. There's the pleasure of listening to music. There's, so many different things. I mean, I don't want to leave out the kink people too. I mean, there could be the pleasure of a scratch on your body. There could be the pleasure of a sleep. So those things are all there. What is it? What is interesting to you?
I love that. Self-research, yes. Pleasure research.
Pleasure research. I also like to do safety research, honestly, because I think people have bypassed their own safety for so long. So
Yeah.
starting with that as well, like what makes you feel safe? And oftentimes I'll do that by having people remember a pet or a child that they knew was afraid, and what did they want to do with that child? What did they want? How did they want to hold that kid? Um, all of these things, all of these emotions, all these big things are coming to us. They're like this small children knocking at the door, and you don't want to be like, oh, you're sad, go away. Like, I don't like you. So all of these things are happening, like even like pain. I think people don't realize, like, it's our bodies, not just, it's not like you're being punished because you have pain. You have the capacity to hold that pain,
Mhm.
have the capacity to love it. I mean, you might not feel like you have that capacity right now, but there is that potential inside of every single person.
I agree. The thing that comes to mind is nothing is forever, right? The happiness we feel right now will at some point end. The pain we feel right now will at some point end. So yeah, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
I'm really curious as well. Are there any other tools, resources, books that you would recommend for people to explore and expand their sex life further?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many amazing things out right now. For example, I mean, I know a lot of people have some judgment around Gwyneth Paltrow, but she did create this whole series on Netflix called Sex, Love, and Goop. So
Oh,
I do think that's really fun to watch. And my teacher, Jaya, is one of the teachers on that show. And so you would get to know a little bit more about my work, with the 5 erotic blueprints. And there's like obviously 350 coaches out there in the world who also do that kind of work. So if you didn't connect with me, there's somebody out there for you, I promise. um, but so, and then Caitlin V is another erotic blueprints coach who did a show. It's on HBO Max called Good Sex. Um, I noticed that she's having to kind of make it a little more pop than it actually is. And so that's a little bit hard. Sometimes it's hard for me to watch it because I know that there's a lot more depth and a lot more heart in the work that we do. And I think there's a lot more depth and heart in the work that Caitlin does, but I think she was capitulating to some producers and things, and I think she had to do that. So I understand that too, just to kind of, but there's some really beautiful moments in there too as well. um and Genevieve's book, The Orgasmic Arc, is a very tiny book that you can get on Amazon, which I totally love. And she does talk about money in there, which is, I don't always agree with everything she says on that, but I love her book so much. It's really beautiful. And Jaya has amazing books out there. She's got like books on kink, which are really fun. And then the last person I do really love is, and she's somebody that was a mentor of mine also, named Saida Desilets. She has this whole program around the jade egg, which is really fun, for people who want to explore the jade egg, which is a very like um, energetic kind of tool that you can work with. But what I love about her is that she talks a lot about erotic innocence, and and it's this idea that your body is innocent. What your body loves is innocent, and that there was a time when we just thought it was play, whatever our bodies were interested in was okay with us. So that going back to that erotic innocence, that kind of place, that kind of time, and also knowing that our body isn't going to be PC, it isn't going to be moral. um you know, some people are going to want to dress like Barbie, and no matter if that is causing something upsetting in the world, our bodies might love something like that. And just being really conscious around separating out what we need to do politically in the world, which is real, and what we need to, and how we need to accept and hold ourselves, which is completely different. Like our bodies are not moral specifically, you know. Sometimes they want to spank, and spanking seems weird and crazy sometimes to people, but sometimes that's what our body wants. And so just holding that, you know. Anyway, so Saida Desilets, all my teachers, I've loved all of them. They've created a world and an ecosystem in my marriage and in my household that is really, really healthy and good. So I feel like really blessed to have known all of them. Um, there's lots of other good books out there too. There's a book that I read called Come As You Are, which is actually kind of cool, as well. But there, just so that you know that the world of eroticism is huge. One of the things my teacher Jaya said is that if you want to explore, when you go into the world of sex and eroticism, there's so many variations. There's as many variations as there are fruit in the world, and you will not be able to eat every single kind of fruit there is, even if you woke up and ate a bite of every different fruit there was in the whole entire world.
Wow.
So, just so you know, that's how big eroticism is, and the way that we start to explore it. But I mean, these are fun tools, you know, like the little ones, like taking the quiz is amazing and really fun, and obviously teaches us something about ourselves. But it's just really scraping the surface right there.
Now, I love that you said that, because even though you have all these great resources, if people go and research all these things and they still can't connect with it, it doesn't mean that there isn't something out there for you. It just means that you have to keep exploring and researching, and because eventually you will find your people, you will find what it is that you're looking for. Just knowing that there's such a breadth of different types of eroticism out there.
Yeah.
That's really encouraging.
I always say that. I always say that to couples. I say, can you look at it like you just got here to this planet and you're super curious about this person in front of you? Can you look at that other person like they're like, huh, I never met them. What kind of alien is this? You know, like, I'm curious about this alien. I want to know what's going on over here, you know? So because I think so often everything is so enmeshed in our like sadness around being rejected or, disconnected, or all of the things that we've been wanting, or needing. But really, it's super eye-opening. Like, wow, there's a million flowers all around you, and you get to see them. You get to check.
Oh, beautiful. So tell us a little bit about your offerings and how you can help people through a sex transformation.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm offering either, I love to do 6 months or 12-month packages. But if you wanted to just come and explore for a shorter period of time, that's okay with me too. Even just a month package is fine. Um, and so, but what I really want to emphasize is that it is a lot easier to start with yourself first than it is in a relationship. I know everyone wants to skip ahead and go to the relationship part, but really, the first relationship you have is you and this body.
Mhm.
So that's your very first relationship, and start there. And I love to start like, even if I have a couple, I want to separate them out. I want them to just work with me individually until they feel like they have the capacity to come together and create this sort of like magic love together. um yeah, so that's my offering. And then we also have, for people who are feeling like they want to just dip their toes in, you can go and play with us in the Red Jasper community. I'm a cohort in there with my another sex coach named Nikki Snow. She's so cool. Totally different kind of person than me. I love her so much. She created this Zine that you can get, which is just like puts your right brain into like looking at the erotic blueprints in a completely different way. It's all like it's all collage that she created, which is really beautiful. And we're on Mighty Networks, and we have 2 live coaching sessions per month that you can come and play with us on, and we'll have more in-depth courses in there as well that'll be like group courses. And I know it's hard when you feel like there is that shame piece and you don't want to like be with everybody, but it is like a kind of, you can come and be quiet. You don't have to say anything. We won't make you talk. We won't make you do anything. You can just be a fly on the wall and like watch everybody else if that's what you want to do. And we are always, 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 we're so consent based. If it's a no for you, it's a no for you. And we honor that. So just letting you know.
That's really good to know. Thank you.
Yeah. So we love no's. We actually love them. We celebrate them. If someone's saying no, we're like, yes, you've done it. You've done the thing we wanted you to do. We want you to say no. so we love no's.
That's
Um, yeah. So I'll send you, I'll have the links ready for all of that. And that's what I'm up to right now. And
incredible.
yeah.
Thank you so much. This was such a great conversation. I know that we just, did the tip of the iceberg on all of this. So if anybody is interested, I will be linking all of her offerings and links down below. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button so people can find us. And Beth, did you want to tell people? I know that you mentioned the link tree. Anywhere else that people can find you?
I mean, you can friend me on Facebook. I'm not like a super active social media person. I know I need to be more active on there. But you can always find me. You can find my story at Linktree at BethAdrienneCoaching on linktr.ee. And I'm always playing in Red Jasper, and I'm a lot more active in the Red Jasper community because it's a closed community and it's more fun, and we get to just be together and play together. But yeah, but if you want to talk to me on Facebook and you want to like DM me, I will absolutely friend you, and you can you send me a private message if you want to talk to me that way. I don't mind.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us. And for all of our listeners, comment down below. Let us know what you think. If you have any questions, reach out directly to Beth Adrienne, and we will see you next time.
Yay. Bye.